Our series, Investing in Education, continuing now with two heavyweights in the industry, Chris Whittle and Benno Schmidt of Avenues. That's the World School, an international system of independent pre-K through 12th grade schools. Now, the first school is set to open next fall. Great to have you both here on Street Smart. Good afternoon.
Great to be here.
Yeah, let me start with you, Chris. In terms of what we're getting from the president, from the White House, from Washington, from the country overall, are we doing the right things when it comes to education?
We're doing a lot of the right things. And if you look at the last 20 years in American education, there's been significant movement. 20 years ago, if you had a meeting of reformers in education, about 5 people came. Today, there's a reform industry of so many different groups that are trying to do good things in schools. And I think the infrastructure for change is in a much better position today than it was 20 years ago. For example, there are almost 4,000 charter schools that are now in existence. 20 years ago, there were none.
And you think that's a good thing, no doubt about it?
It's a terrific thing.
Why so good? Why is it such a smart strategy?
Because that brings innovation into what was, in many respects, a monopoly, and choice for parents. Is a great thing.
Right, and government hasn't been doing such a great job, so maybe it's good to get other people involved. Matt, I know you want to jump in here.
Well, because if we're doing a lot of the right things, why do we fail to beat other countries on, for example, the PISA test? The Asians blow us out of the water. Or if you just take a trip to Europe and talk to regular high school students, they seem to be a lot better educated than American high school students, or at least further along in the curriculum. So why do we seem to lag behind the rest of the world?
Benno, why don't you take that?
Well, I think the problem that you're right is that the reforms have not yet produced real accountability into the system, and the charter schools and the alternate choices are not yet at a scale in which the system has to become more accountable and more concerned with performance in order to meet the challenge. I think we're on the edge of that, though, and I think the next 5 years we could see a lot more progress.
Do we need to have the private sector more and more and more involved in your view?
I actually think that's the key. I don't think America will solve this problem the way Finland and Singapore with top-down. I think the only way to improve this is through the characteristic American way of innovation, as Chris said. And while government can help innovation by providing research dollars, in the end you need a free market of innovators to go to work, and that happens best in the private sector.
In the private sector, you know, I think about, I'm in an area where it's an up-and-coming area, but the public school system's terrible, so my daughter goes to private school. I mean, that's not necessarily fair to a lot of kids who can't afford to do that. I mean, how do we, the private sector is involved, it tends to be somewhat more expensive. I think about even the school that you guys are working on, it's not inexpensive.
Well, there are different forms of the private sector. One, there are private schools, which is an example of what we're doing, but for the last 20 years, and still we're on the board of Edison Learning, we built hundreds of charter schools around the United States and around the world. And those are private sector involvements in public schooling. So private sector doesn't necessarily mean private school.
Right.
And the Catholic schools are part of the private sector. I mean, one of the things that would help us, I think, a lot as a country is if the country could get behind the Catholic schools and support them. And that's proven hard to do because of the constitutional barriers. But that would be a great thing for kids, because the Catholic schools tend to be very successful in the inner city where the public schools struggle.
How much of it, and Chris, how much of it do you think is about society, the culture, the parents, really? Because obviously in Beijing, you're not seeing so much private sector activity in schools, but the parents tell the kids, you know, you have to get up at 5 a.m. and start your schooling process, which is going to take pretty much until you go to bed, you know, at 10 p.m. How much of it is a cultural issue?
I think a good bit of it's a cultural issue, but if we allow schools, if you say, well, we're going to allow that to be an excuse, it essentially lets schools off the hook. And so we think great schools go, we have to accept the cultural conditions that we have, and with the day part that we have, which is 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day, we've got to do the best that we can. You try to engage the culture outside the school, but you can't let it be the excuse for poor performance.
With avenues, I mean, what is the plan here? I mean, you guys have, I'm assuming, huge aspirations with this. You're going to open up your first school here in New York, and then what? Overseas is a big market for you.
What we're doing is we're building the first global school, and we think of it as one school with 20 campuses in the world's great cities.
Kind of like a cloud computing across the world.
In a sense, it's a very good analog. And think Avenues New York, Avenues Mumbai, Avenues Beijing, and you have the general idea. And we think of it as one worldwide student body and one worldwide faculty. And our first campus is opening here in New York in Chelsea on the High Line, and it's 12 months from today. And it's nursery through the 12th grade. And it's going to be a very exciting school. A crucial part of it is language. And Matt, you were talking about the differences that are often seen between American students and students across the world. One of the big differences is language capability. And we're starting Mandarin and Spanish at age 3. Half of the school day is in either Mandarin or Spanish for the first 7 years. It's called immersion. It's the way to fluency.
I want to go. I want to go to that school. Can I go?
We're also going to give the kids a chance to go to school in different cultures on different continents. A youngster who's with us through high school, we anticipate will have serious periods of time on in India, China, Africa, Europe, Latin America, as well as here in New York. So we want to give the students a real global experience. That's the way their lives are going to be, whatever profession they wind up in.
They're going to kill me, but 5 seconds. I mean, are you guys going to be, we're a business channel, are you guys going to be profitable right out of the gate, or is it going to take some time?
It takes time. We've been investing already for 3.5 years. But we become profitable pretty quickly once school is open. But it takes a while to get school open.
Okay. Makes sense. Benno Schmidt, Chris Whittle, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Very
much. Really
much.
appreciate it.